All right, in this lecture, we're going to be taking the contouring line concept a little bit further, and I'm going to be showing you some exercises you can do to have a better understanding of contouring lines and just get better at drawing them in general. So let's go ahead and get started. So you should be able to download the resources in this lecture for this man right here, and there's also a landscape photograph that you can download as well. So what you want to do is you want to import your photo into whatever software you're using, and then you want to go ahead and resize it. So in Photoshop, it's just Command T if you're working on a Mac, but this isn't a software specific course, so you might have to do a little bit of research in order to learn how to resize this, or you might already know how to do it. But we'll just go ahead and shrink him down to about that size so he's not taking up our whole entire canvas. Then we'll switch to the brush tool, and what we want to do is we want to just basically draw the contouring lines of this man. So I'm going to add a new layer on top of this just so we're not drawing directly on top of any of these photographs or a background. And so basically a contouring line is just going to follow, let's say, the bridge of the nose. I used it as an example before, or it might follow this line right there, or the nostril hole, or the bottom of the nose right there. There might even be a contouring line right there. The eyebrows, all of this. These are all contouring lines. I'll go ahead and undo all those because we don't actually want to draw on top of this drawing. What we want to do for this exercise is we want to draw it over here, but the interesting thing about this exercise is we don't want to actually look at the photograph we don't want to look at our drawing at all. So the entire time we want to be observing our photograph and drawing, but we don't ever want to actually look at our drawing. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to, one, learn how to observe the photograph, and two, we're trying to see those lines, and we're trying to learn how to basically translate what we see over here through our hand over here. And a good way to practice that is by just not even looking at your drawing at all. Now, your drawing is probably not going to turn out very good. Mine probably won't even turn out very good. And that's okay. Another thing is we want to remember where our hand has been. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a rule that we're not allowed to lift our hand off of the tablet. We have to keep pushing down the entire time in one continuous line to draw all the contouring lines. So that way our hand can kind of remember where we've been. If we just lift up our stylus and we start drawing somewhere else, we're going to really forget where our hand has been. So we want to make sure that we keep that pressed down the entire time. So let's go ahead and get started. So this doesn't have to be crazy detailed, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the eye. It's important that you actually do look where you start the drawing, but once you place your pencil down, go ahead and look over at the photograph and let's just start drawing. You may need to adjust the size of your brush as well. And so like I said, we can't pick up our brush, so we want to make sure that we are continuing back on the same lines. We don't want to pick that brush up at all. Now you can make this a pretty quick drawing. You don't have to take forever for it. Now I know this is probably looking absolutely ridiculous, whatever I'm drawing. I'm not even looking at it right now. I'm just looking at the photograph. But I'm really paying attention to the curves. And once you practice this, it's kind of like somebody that is a biker or somebody that runs, and they'll practice their running up in the mountains because there's less oxygen. And it makes it harder to run. But then when they run where there's an abundance of oxygen, it makes running much, much easier. So it's kind of a similar concept. By not looking at your artwork, it's forcing you to really observe your image and try to figure out where those lines are and what is a contouring line and what's not. So for example, in the center of the cheeks, there's not really any contouring line there. It's just one big open space. So we wouldn't add any type of contouring line there. Contouring lines tend to show up on the silhouette of forms. And then I guess I can kind of do his neck and his shoulders. All right, let's have a look. Oh my goodness. Wow, that is yikes. So even me, somebody that's a pretty skilled artist, even when I do this assignment or this exercise, I come out with something looking like this. It's pretty freaky. It kind of looks like Sloth from the Goonies. But like I said, it's about really challenging yourself to really study your image and really start to gain an understanding of contouring lines and where they show up in images. Because once you start to understand this, you're going to see it apply to all of your drawings and even paintings throughout the course. Now, one more thing you can do with this exercise is, if you want, go ahead and you can look at your drawing while you're doing it. So do the same thing, but look at your drawing while you're doing it so you have a better idea of where you're placing these lines. I recommend that you do it without looking at your drawing once, and then do it once while looking at the drawing. And if you really want to get good at this, then try this a couple of times with different photographs. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next exercise. So the next exercise is going to just be tracing over an image. So this is the second photo that you could download in the resources for this lecture. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a layer on top of that. So whatever program you're in, there's going to be a way to add a layer on top of that. And that's what we're going to draw our contouring lines on. So we just want to look at this photograph, or whatever photograph we're working with, and we want to figure out where the contouring lines are and what's not a contouring line. So with contouring lines, you can get pretty detailed, but for the most part, you want to keep it simple. So for example, all these little ripples in the wave, we wouldn't want to just do little lines out here as contouring lines. We would basically want to just keep this space nice, big, and open. It's not going to really consist of any contouring lines because there's no real definite form. It's just basically one big flat surface. So at the edge of this surface, so right here, for example, where it meets up with the edge of the cliff, that can be a contouring line. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start down here. Let's start with the top edge of the cliff. So we just want to kind of find a line that makes up our contouring line. And we just want to follow that. So we can kind of follow the shape, and I guess you could almost call it the texture of the edge of this cliff. It's nice and jaggedy. Feel free to lift your stylus up on this exercise as well. It's not super important that you don't lift it up on this exercise. So now let's go ahead and let's just trace out the silhouette of this. We got a little building right there, so we'll just add a little rectangle in there for that. We're just following the basic edge of the cliff. All right, great. Now let's go ahead and we can do the top edge of the cliff over here. So we'll just go ahead and follow this line. Great. All right, so we also get a little bit, I think, of a contouring line. So as you can see, all of this area is pretty flat, but once we get over here to this edge, this river or this road or whatever this is, it kind of starts to slope down in that direction. So it's flat there and then it slopes down. So what we want to do is we want to kind of break that up into a separate contouring line. So something like this, because that's kind of a change in the form of our structure. So anywhere there's a change in the form, we want to add in that contouring line. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and do the bottom of our cliff. So we'll start out here, come down like that. We're just following what we see in the photograph, nice and simple. And then we can go ahead and trace out things like these little rocks out here. Great. Next, looking at our cliff face, we have some contouring lines in here. We have some that are going in this direction if we wanted to add those in, and we also have some going up and down. So places where we'll see them going up and down is, for example, right here, where this cliff edge kind of comes out and then it goes back in. We want to make sure that we get the edge of that silhouette in there. Same with right here. So anywhere where we kind of get these protruding overhang sort of squared off edges. Over here we get it as well. You can't see the bottom of it. And we also get a little bit of a hill right there that kind of comes out like that. A little bit there as well. And then we can come over here. This rock kind of gets a little bit of a line like that, and that just kind of creates a little bit of form in there. But as you can see, you have a few of these lines that kind of break up the form, and we create that with our contouring lines. All right, great. So there we go. We basically drew in all of our contouring lines. If we wanted to, we could go ahead and draw a straight line across the top here as our horizon. But now if we go ahead and we turn off our image layer, so if you come over here and click this eye, there should be a way in your program to turn off the image layer. Now you can see that we just have our drawing here. And it basically looks like the photograph we just looked at, except it's just made up of lines. But we can kind of still get the same idea of what the form and the perspective and the shape, language, and all of that good stuff. We can get that just from this contouring line drawing. Now I recommend that you do a few of these exercises. So not only just do a few of these exercises, but also do a few of these where you take a photograph, you trace it and figure out what the contouring lines are, and then do that with a few different things. So you can do that with a person, with landscapes, with an animal, but really just start to break it down into simple contouring lines. That brings us to the end of this lecture. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.